Alrighty, so today we are going to finish up the review of match week number 7. We're going to look at the last 6 games of the Saturday night action. I already did the review of the first game of the Saturday night action, and then, of course, did the review for the Sunday game yesterday as well. But one thing I noticed when I did the review for all of these games is that most of this week's action, there wasn't really a lot of goals that was scored. In fact, there was only 2 games that we feature a team score more than 3 goals. One of them we'll talk about in this review, and then the other was the 6-1 thrashing that I attend in person between the Quakes and DC United. But we also saw a couple of nil-nil draw, and we start off with one of those nil-nil draw. That, of course, is the Philadelphia Union versus Orlando City. And I would say that both of these nil-nil draw, it wasn't because of lack of chances. And especially in the case of the Philadelphia Union, they pretty much put a lot of chances against Orlando City, but Orlando kind of played a relatively good road game where they play that bend but don't break kind of style, and they actually had a couple of chances of themselves to try to steal all 3 points in this game as well. Now, in the first half, 11 minutes in, Glasnes would hit it right to Galese. The shots were 2-0 for the Union 15 minutes in, but overall, not much really trouble the Orlando backline early on. Keep in mind, Orlando City let up 4 goals early this season against the Philadelphia Union. Lukic would then had a shot that was took a deflection. It goes wide before he had a cross that went all the way and was awkwardly there by Galese. There was no doubt that the Union was getting chances, but there was also a small coming together between both of these teams. And as I said, it's been all Union early up to this point. They were pressing for the opening goal. The first shot of for Orlando didn't came until the 41st minute, and it was a good chance too because Pasalic was kind of in on goal here, but Blake able to make a big save to deny Orlando City of scoring against the run of play. But we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. In the second half, Galese would deny Diamandi from close before Hariel would put it right to Galese as the Union kind of picked up where they left off at the end of for the majority of the first half, that is. They were looking to try to get the opening goal. Lukic would then puts it high from long range before Diamante would puts it way high from close. There was a shout for a penalty for the Union not given a little after that before Muriel would have a rare chance for Orlando, but was denied by Blake. But this is kind of when the momentum started to shift to Orlando City. Up to this point, it was all Union. It feels like Orlando was going your typical strategy of what we see sometime with road teams of just that bend but don't break, but simply just kind of park the bus and hope for a nil-nil draw. Ojeda then had a shot that was deflected and goes wide before Smith heads it right to Blake. And like I said, it looked like that was kind of the case. But in these last couple of minutes, all of a sudden, Orlando looked like they feel like they have a chance to win this game. And this is kind of a typical thing for a road team, especially a road team that is not favorites coming into this one, where they're just going to try to bunker in, and then if they see the chance late to get all 3 points, they're gonna start to be aggressive. And I thought Orlando City kind of saw that, and Oscar Perez was kind of being aggressive, trying to maybe steal one late in this game. Galenovic would then puts it wide from close in the 89th minute before Diamante had the last chance of the game, but he puts it high from close range. So yeah, it ends in a scoreless draw in this one. And the shots in this one, 20 shots compared to 6 that Orlando City has, but the shots on goal tells a big story on this game. Only 4 of them out of the 20 was on target there compared to 3 that Orlando City has. 8 shots off target for the none that Orlando City has. 3 shots on block for the 8 that the Union has, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to 42% possession that Orlando City has in this game. So yeah, for the Union, very frustrating night in this one. And there's no doubt that it feels like this Union team has started to come back down to earth. After that incredible start they have in the start of the season, they've only won one out of their last 4 games, and maybe this was kind of a classic case that the new head coach boost that the Union are getting from Bradley Carnell has started to slowly wear it off, and this team aren't able to pick up points both at home or on the road, at least in the last couple of games. But for Orlando City, I know they definitely didn't play their best when it comes to their attack. But honestly, after you gave up 4 goals in the opening weekend of the season against the same Union side, I think Oscar Perez team will be happy the fact that they kept a clean sheet in this one, and again had a couple of chances late in this one to steal all 3 points back in Orlando, but just couldn't quite do so in the end. Now, moving on in the next match. So we talk about the other no-no draw between Austin FC versus the Portland Timbers. Though this is kind of a game where both teams had a couple of moments themselves to get the win, but unfortunately no one was clinical in front of goal. Vasquez would have the first chance of the game. In fact, he had a chance just 1 minute in, but he missed wide from close before Uzuni would head it wide from close. As Austin was definitely on the front foot early on, they were looking to press for the lead. Savic would then puts it over from close in the 5th minute. We then go for a period where not much really happened, as I thought the Timbers did a good job in terms of surviving the early pressure. Also, definitely shot out of the cannon in this one, but as we're 30 minutes into this game, those free shots I mentioned that Austin had in the first 5 minutes, that's still the first the shots total up to this point. So yeah, the shots total was basically stuck at free shots. It got really tight very quickly. The first shot for the Timbers didn't came until the 33rd minute, and it saw DaCosta puts it right to Stuver before Stuver would deny Mora from close in the 41st minute. Portland definitely woke up in this game. It was a very slow start for Phil Neville's side, but there's no doubt that they got into this game looking to try to take the lead late. But we do head to halftime with the line scoreless between both of these teams. In the second half, Stuver would deny Moreno, but Irisaiko and Mascara unleashed one from long range, but he was denied by Stuver. Ayala would then heads it wide from close in the 59th minute as the Timbers kind of picked up where they left off in the near the end of the first half. They were looking to try to get the opening goal. Ayala had a shot that was clear off the line before the Costa would puts it right to Stuvers as the Timbers continue to press for the opening goal, and it looked like they were starting to put some sustained pressure to eventually get that opening goal. However, Austin Lake did provide a surge to try to get 3 points at home. Pentemis would tip Vasquez shot over before Uzuni would puts it over from long range. As I mentioned, Austin was pressing late to try to get the winning goal because after all, they're at home. They want to be the protagonist in this game to get all 3 points, especially with the way that they have had a lot of these 1-0 win. They were trying to do the same thing again. But in the 89th minute, Uzuni missed another one from close before Pentemis denied Pereira from close range in the 3rd minute of stoppage time. And yeah, in the end, it ends in a scoreless draw in this game. Both of these teams had their moments in this one. Couldn't quite find a goal. The shots in this one pretty even. 11 shots for the 12 that the Timbers had. Only one shot on goal that Austin had in this game, which I definitely debate that's not correct because as I mentioned, there was a couple of times where Pentemis actually had to make a couple of saves. I think probably I mentioned 3 times where Pentemis had to make a save. So yeah, on the website it says one shot on goal, even though I feel like it probably should have been three instead of one. But nevertheless, 5 shots on goal for the Portland Timbers, 1 shot off target for the 7 that Austin had, 3 shots that was blocked for the 6 that the Timbers had, and possession wise 50% for both of these teams in this game. So yeah, again, like I said, this was just a typical game where both of these teams obviously has been red hot coming in to this one, but just unable to find the shooting boots in this game to get that 3 points to continue this good run of form that both of these teams are in heading into the early part of the season. But now moving on to Sporting KC versus St. Louis City, and it finally is over. Sporting KC, after over 190 days, and was approaching 200 days, they finally got a win. And honestly, you kind of saw it coming in this game because one, this is of course a rivalry game, and Sporting KC is going to be up for it, even though it's been a really rough start to the season once again for this team, and probably right now in one of the darkest period of this team history, probably going back to the Kansas City Wizard kind of team. This is kind of the reason why I wear the Wizard jerseys here, but you kind of had a feeling that Sporting KC had a chance to end the winless run as well because they got a new interim head coach here. This is the first time in 15 plus year that Peter Remis is not on the touchline, and actually scratch that, it's 16 plus year because Peter Remis was hired back in 2009. But yeah, first time in 16 years that we don't see Peter Remis at the touchline for Sporting KC, and Sporting KC get that new interim head coach boost and eventually get the win in this game. Although I will say that this game was kind of even when you look at how things went out. But early on, one thing I want to mention, there was a lot of empty seat inside Chosen Mercy Park, which, I understand that the fans are obviously very frustrated in terms of how the team played, but consider the fact that they finally got their wish of letting go Peter Vermees. I would have thought that at least maybe gets some of the fans back in the stands, and especially you're playing against your biggest rival. I mean, I wasn't expecting to be a sold out crowd, but the fact that there was just so many empty seats, I think the stadium was maybe at very best 70% full. That was very surprising. Consider a couple of years ago, this game have always been sold out, and again, I know it's probably the lowest point right now when it comes to this rivalry, when it comes to how both of these teams have played. But I was assuming, thing with the way that even with that, I was expecting both teams to at least kind of fill up the stands. And like I said, for Sporting KC fans to finally got their wish in the middle of the week, finally letting go of their longtime head coach. Maybe some of the fans were going to be back in the stands for this game. So for the first 15 minutes, there was not really much action. In fact, the first shot of the game, see Wallen struck the post in the 16th minute, and then Postcam would deny Wallen, but falls right into the path of Akil Watts, but he couldn't quite clean it up on the rebound. St. Louis was definitely putting the pressure early. They definitely put the stamp in this rivalry early in this one. Though in the 30th minute, Davis had a shot that was deflected and goes right to Lund, and that was the first shot for Sporting KC. It was a very slow start for Sporting KC once again in this one. Morales would then put one just wide from long range before Lund would deny Joveljic from close in the 38th minute, and all of a sudden you started to see both of these teams were getting some good chances, looking to try to get that crucial first statement in this rivalry. Hartel tried to do so in the 44th minute, where he curls it wide from close, and we do head to halftime with the score split between both of these teams, but not because of lack of trying. In the second half, Fernandez would puts it wide for Sporting KC before Davis was in on goal there, but he missed that one wide, and that again is kind of a moment that is a microcosm of Sporting KC season so far. But to be fair, Sporting KC I thought started well early in this one, though as I said, that post game would denied hard toe from close before Wallen would heads it right to Postgam. And again, just like that, the momentum was right back to St. Louis. They were looking to try to press for the opening goal, but eventually in the 71st minute, we do finally see the opening goal of this rivalry, and it came from the Holt side as Dejan Joveljic would score from Garcia and Rodolfo to make it 1-0 in favor of Sporting KC. About 17 minutes later, Joveljic basically calls game as he scored here to make it 2-0. Garcia actually struck the post here, but Joveljic was just in the right place in the right time to put that one in. Just a classic Dejan Joveljic goal. We know how how uh, how potent he is in goal when it comes to being a poacher. And yeah, that goal not only was a huge one for Sporting KC, but maybe one that finally ends Sporting KC 190 plus day since their last win. What's kind of also interesting is that I've said that Sporting KC has this big winless run. They actually don't have the longest winless run going back to last year. TFC actually have the longest winless run, as they mentioned in the Inter Miami and TFC game, that Toronto has gone 200 plus day without a win, which I was kind of surprised because I thought for sure that Sporting KC had the longest winless run, but obviously after this game that was not to be the case, and that now TFC of course still has the longest winless run in the leagues going back to last year. But in the 90th minute, Lund would deny Tommy from long range. You can clearly see there was confident in the Sporting KC side. This is the first time we've started to see that this attack started to get going, and they were pushing for another. Lund would then deny Jolich and his hat trick on the curler, but in the end, Sporting KC for the first time since September, they taste 3 points against their biggest rival with a 2-0 win. The shots in this one dead even at 11 shots, 5 shots on goal for the 4 that St. Louis had, 6 shots off target for the 2 that Sporting KC had, 3 shots that was blocked for the none that St. Louis had, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to the 48% possession that St. Louis City has in this game. And by the way, with this loss, St. Louis have now got shut out 5 out of their first 7 games to start the season. It is pretty clear that goal scoring is a huge problem for this St. Louis City side. And while in this game, I thought they definitely put a little bit more effort, especially on the road, when it comes to on the attacking end, it simply was still not good enough, and it's got to be really concerning the fact that you're facing against one of the worst defensive team in the league, and literally probably one of the worst team in the league, and you still aren't able to score a goal. Yeah, there's got to be a lot of question that's got to be asked for this St. Louis side, especially for Olaf Melper as well. Again, I also wouldn't be surprised the fact that he maybe started feeling the heat a little bit. I mean, I know it is still early in the season. I'm pretty sure St. Louis will him time, but it's getting to the point where if the result doesn't come in the way that this team has just looked very uninspiring on the attacking side, and part of that is because Melbourne is a very defensive kind of type of head coach. We kind of knew that when he came into the job for St. Louis, or at least in his previous job, a lot of fans kind of complained about how defensive his team is. And while St. Louis has been pretty good when it comes to the defensive side this season, they've been absolutely toothless on the attacking end. And yes, injuries had play a big part of that. But they had most of the players back in this game. Notice I didn't even mention Teuscher in this game, even though Teuscher did play in this one. That's how things have gone for the Louis side on the attack. Just nothing. It seems like it's going right for this team this season with them keep getting shut out. And like I said, it's got to be alarming the fact that this is already now the fifth game that St. Louis have got shut out in a game, by far the most out of any MLS team so far to begin the season. But for Sporting KC, it's got to be a huge relief that finally they get their first win, and to do it against their biggest rival. I mean, this might as well be their MLS Cup alongside with finally seeing the dismissal of their longtime head coach Peter Remis over the middle of the week. With that being said, moving on into the last game on this board is the Houston Dynamo versus LAFC. So speaking of a team that had a winless run to begin the season, we saw another team had their winless run come to an end, and that of course is the Houston Dynamo. Though you kind of had a sense that this was going to be the case because LAFC was clearly punting this game. They're pretty much doing the same thing what we see with the other LA team, just kind of punting this game because they know that there's a bigger priority heading into the middle of the week against Inter Miami in that second leg of the quarterfinal of CCC. But in the first half, Urso would put it wide from close, and then Ponce would put one that was actually palmed away by Lloris. As I thought the Dynamo was on the front foot early on, they were looking to finally snap this winless run. The first shot for a shorthanded LAFC side saw Yeboah puts it wide from long range. The shots were 3-1 for Houston early in this one. There was a shout for a penalty for the Dynamo not given, and then Gillingham on the other end had to deny Martinez on the doorstep of goal. Yeboah then puts it way high from long range in the 36th minute, and all of a sudden, this shorthanded LAFC side, this kind of reserved LAFC side started to get into this game, and we're looking for the opening goal. Sevchenko would then heads it wide from close in the 44th minute, but we do head to halftime with the scoreless between both of these teams. In the second half, Lloris would deny Ponce from close, but then in the 58th minute, Houston finally gets their opening goal. It's Jack McGlynn, his first goal for the Dynamo here from Dorsey to make it 1-0 in favor of them. Giroux did look to respond at the hour mark, but he hits that one wide. And then LAFC kind of started to feel like, well, this is kind of the time when we need to bring in the cavalry because we're down one nothing in this game, and with the way that you probably get some of your main starter a try in these last 20 minutes, see maybe you can get yourself a equalizer, and it kind of almost worked out because they started to grab the momentum back from the Dynamo, started to push for the equalizer. It starts with Bawanga have a cross that actually took a couple of deflection and struck the post there. So very unlucky there for LAFC of not level up to that point. And then Gillingham had to deny Segura on the header. I gotta say, Gillingham, he's been doing a really good job for the Dynamo. He might be the outright starter for the Houston Dynamo, even when Andrew Tarbell or Jimmy Maurer is going to be back in this team because he's been playing pretty well, and consider the other two goalkeeper this season, both of those goalkeeper has not had a really good run of form for the Dynamo, so don't be surprised. Maybe this is the job that for Blake Gillingham to win for the rest of the season. He would deny Segura on the header in the 80th minute as LAFC was definitely pouring on the pressure, and it feels like it's all hands on deck for the Dynamo trying to survive and get a big 1-0 win to end their winless streak. Unda would then puts it wide from long range before Segura would heads it wide from close in the 6th minute of stoppage time. And despite unrelentless pressure that LAFC put against the Dynamo, Houston survived. They end their winless run at 7 games with their first win of the season with a 1-0 win. The shots in this one, 11 shots for the 12 that LAFC had, 2 shots on goal for the 3 that the Dynamo has, 4 shots off target for the 5 that LAFC had. Both teams had 3 shots that was blocked, and possession-wise, 59% possession compared to the 41% possession that LAFC has in this game. And just like what I said about Sporting KC for Houston, it's got to feel good to finally get that monkey off the back. And you kind of sense that this feels like it's a must-win game, considering when you're facing against a relatively weaker LAFC side, you have to win win this game. Like if you don't win this game, there's got to be a even more concern about this team as the season goes along. The good news is they do win this game, and like I said, finally getting off the schneid. And for LAFC, they'll take this loss and say that well, this is just a typical case when we always see with MLS team deep in a CONCACAF Champions Cup run that they're gonna just simply punt these game away because there's bigger priorities in the CONCACAF Champions Cup than it is in this game. Now, obviously, we'll see whether or not if these results can come back to haunt an MLS team later on, because we have seen that before with teams making deep run before punting these games that maybe could have play a big role as the season goes along. But as I said, for LAFC, they have bigger priorities right now compared to the regular season. You would assume Steve Cherno's side can make up these lost points that they have just because they have a bigger focus in terms of another competition known as the CONCACAF Champions Cup against Inter Miami on Wednesday. With that being said, I am now going to change boards and look at the last two games to finish up the review for match week number 7. So moving on, in the next game is the Vancouver Whitecaps versus the Colorado Rapids. So while other teams that is in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, that seems like they're punting this weekend's action, so they focus more on CCC play. You can't say the same thing about the Vancouver Whitecaps. They pretty much put almost the same roster in this game against the Rapids compared to when they play against Pumas in the first leg a couple of days ago. Now, part of that is because of the fact that this team definitely does not have the same amount of depth as what we see with other teams. So pretty much, yeah, for Sorensen's side, is kind of forced his hands to almost play the same team. But despite that, it hasn't really quite been taking a big effect because when you play you're the same team so many game in a short amount of period, you worry that maybe fatigue could be a factor for this team, but so far, this Whitecaps team doesn't seem like fatigue at all, and the quality have definitely not dropped for this team. In fact, this was a pretty convincing victory that they had in this game against the Colorado Rapids, and kind of shows you why that it's not a fluke right now that they're at the top of the Western Conference. Now, in the first half, Cabral would puts it wide from close range before he puts it wide again just a couple of minutes later. The Rapids actually started well in this one, and we're looking for the opener early in this one. That is as much a good thing that the Rapids would get for the rest of the game because for the rest of the game, this was pretty much all Vancouver. It started with Stefan denying Ali Ahmed from close, as that was Vancouver's first shot. But on the second shot of the game for the Whitecaps, it's in the back of net. And guess who scored that goal on the second shot for the Whitecaps? It's got to be Brian White. He's been a big game player for the Whitecaps. We saw it in the game against Pumas, and he scored again here from Berhalter and Johnson to make it 1-0 in favor of Vancouver, and that was just beautiful soccer for this Vancouver side. Jasper Sorensen has not only worked miracles of this team, but he has definitely made this team much more enjoyable to watch, and especially playing much more kind of possession style soccer that you usually just don't see with previous Whitecaps team. The Whitecaps have always been known as a transition team, even under Vanni Sartini, but Jasper Sorensen has kind of got away with that one a little bit, and as a result, they have been playing some really good soccer, and that was an example of it. And then just 19 minutes later, they would score again as Emmanuel Sabi would score his first career MLS goal from odd man to make it 2-0 in favor of the Whitecaps. And again, just some champagne soccer. The Whitecaps play here just completely cut open that Rapids defense. Maxo did look to answer, but he missed wide in the third minute of stoppage time. But we do head to halftime with the Vancouver Whitecaps leading 2-0. And it looked like it was 3-0 in the 48th minute when Pedro Vite scored a screamer there. The problem was the goal was disallowed by offside. According to VAR, I think it was Brian White that was in the vicinity of the goalkeeper, clearly impaired the vision of the goalkeeper and was in an offside position. So yeah, that is obviously going to be called back. And it remains 2-0. Though Vite just a couple of minutes later once again put a screamer from long range, and this time put it on the volley, but he just put this one high. Yeah, Pedro Vite was definitely feeling it from long range early in the second half, but what is also so feeling it is the Whitecaps early in the second half. They were pushing to try to get the third goal. Vite would then hits it right to Stefan in the 64th minute before Stefan denied Ahmed from close. It just feels like it's man against boys up to this point. The Whitecaps were all over this its team. Probably could have scored a couple more up to this point. So as the game winds down, this is when I think it's kind of shut up shop for Jasper Sorensen's side, and he kind of knows it, the fact that maybe they'll just back off a little bit, conserve that energy heading into the game against Pumas in the middle of the week, and as a result, they were able to cruise their way to an easy 3 points here, a 2-0 win that the Whitecaps had against the Rapids. The shots in this one, 15 shots committed 9 that the Rapids had, no shots on goal for the 5 that Vancouver has, 2 shots off target for the 3 that Colorado has, 5 shots that was blocked for the 8 that Vancouver has, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession the Rapids has in this game. And while it was a great performance for the Vancouver Whitecaps, you can't say the same about the Rapids. I mean, they basically ran into a buzzsaw in this game, known as the Vancouver Whitecaps. You know who else is also a buzzsaw right now? It's San Diego FC, the new boys. Because yeah, in this game against the Seattle Sounders, they probably played their best game in their expansion life, putting a drumming against the Seattle Sounders, and it started early too. As 2 minutes into this game, and literally 80 seconds into this game as well, their captain, Yepi Verskov, would score from Lozano to make it 1-0 in favor of San Diego, and I, I, I talk about San Diego having the best game. This was probably the best game that Cookie Lozano played for San Diego FC. Rusnak did look to respond, but he missed this one wide, and then De La Torre looked for a second for San Diego, but he missed just wide in the 9th minute. Ralph Rock would then hits it right to Santos in the 10th minute. It was kind of a frantic start to this game. There was some end-to-end action, and I thought defensively, yeah, it was kind of optional, at least in the first 10 minutes. Rusnak would then hits it right to Dos Santos from the free kick before Rock would have a shot that was deflected and goes wide. That also kind of came off of a bad turnover for San Diego, and they got to be careful when it comes to playing out of the back, especially when teams trying to press them. That's, I think, is another thing that maybe I could see teams do against San Diego, knowing that they like to have possession and they like to build out of the back. Why not put some pressure on them and see if you can force a turnover on them? And there's a couple of times in this game where they didn't get it right when it comes to trying to play out of the back and was almost punished because of it. Dreyer would then puts it wide off the volley in the 32nd minute before Valakari puts it over from close in the 33rd minute, as San Diego once again was pressing for that second goal, and they got it in the 41st minute. As Honorable Godoy, he scored his first goal for San Diego from Dreyer and Lozano, and yeah, Stefan Fry, he's got to do better in terms of. I mean, I know, Stefan Fry, right? You kind of had a sense that maybe Father Time is starting to catch him up to it, but he's still a quality goalkeeper keeper, and that is one that, to his high standards, he's got to do better, especially in the near post like that reacted late. That is one that you usually see Stefan front prevent since. But San Diego wouldn't care. They were up 2-0 up to this point. Lozano then puts it over on the chip in the first minute of stoppage time, and then Fry had to deny Dreyer from close, as Seattle needs halftime because they were completely disorganized at the back. San Diego, they were all over for them, and they were not done in terms of trying to get that third goal before halftime, and they did exactly that. And finally, it happened. Chucky Lozano finally get his first long awaited goal in MLS from Lawfulson and Verskar to make it 3-0 in favor of San Diego, and yeah. That would be the scoreline heading into halftime, and this is also the second game in a row that San Diego have scored 3 goals in the first half. And the second half, we have god I oh yeah, and the 53rd minute draw would puts it just wide from close. I couldn't read my own handwriting a second ago. That's kind of embarrassing. Yamar would then puts it wide from the free kick delivery in the 60th minute. Not much happened, at least in the second half, as you feel like that free goal blitz that San Diego put in the first half, it really kind of dampened the Sounders' spirit of any comeback in this one. Muswaski then had a looping header that goes right to Dos Santos, and then Dos Santos had to deny Muswaski after just another WTF turnover from San Diego. Very similar to what we see in the first half. They didn't play it right, playing out of the back, and it was almost costly there. Leva would then puts it wide from long range, as the Sounders seems like they finally getting some sustained pressure. But again, how much is that because of the fact that San Diego seems like they put their foot off the gas? I think they pretty much put their foot off the gas ever since the beginning of the second half. Muswaski then heads it wide in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, but in the end, for San Diego, another win for them, and once again stamping their authority of why they could potentially be going after St. Louis record, or actually not St. Louis record, but LAFC record in terms of the expansion points total. I will say that they'll also still go after St. Louis in terms of becoming the second expansion team to finish top of the Western Conference. I mean, they're not that far off when it comes to where they are in the standings from the top spots. But the shots in this one, 9 shots for the 14 that Seattle has. Both team had 4 shots on goal, 4 shots off target, but 5 that the Sounders had. 3 shots that was blocked for the 1 that San Diego has, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to the 43% possession that San Diego has in this game. It is pretty much all vibes right now for this expansion side. And I think I've been very impressed with San Diego is that, this is the team that, unlike previous expansion team, are playing with no fear whatsoever. Like, it's very rare that I've seen an expansion side decided to play a brand of soccer where they like to control the possession and dictate the game like what we see with Mikey Verasai has done, but not only the fact that they have done a really good job throughout the season and probably have gone better as the season goes along, but this legitimately looked like might be right now the best team in the Western Conference. And again, this is no disrespect to the Vancouver Whitecaps. They themselves have been good as well, but with the way that San Diego has looked in the last couple of games, I mean, yes, there are definitely some weakness that you could definitely pick out of this San Diego side, but with how things are rolling for this team, do not be surprised. This team might be finishing the top of the standings, and unless if teams don't have a book on them, they probably would be on that point. You can't say the same about the Seattle Sounders. It's a repeat of last season again. A slow start for them once again, and again they are desperate to get Jordan Morris back in this team. I mean, he has been a guy that they desperately miss. And you also notice I didn't write Jesus for a name in this game. Yeah, he was pretty much non-existent in this one, and this is now started becoming a huge flop and a huge bust that the Sounders got when it comes to bringing Jesus Ferreira. And I think Dallas fans are probably in the background are saying, "Yeah, we told you so. We told you how it feels like Jesus Ferreira has completely been washed up in the last couple of season, especially when you're not playing him in the for number 9 spot." But there you have it. That is pretty much it when it comes to looking at all of these games from match week number 7. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of all of these games. We got another 15 game action this weekend as well. I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw in the last weekend with a couple of games on Saturday that are matinee game. Majority of the game happening on Saturday night, and then we also have a couple of Sunday game to wrap up as well. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.